This is a short video to illustrate how a perfectly competitive firm makes its decisions with regard to quantity produced. We have a diagram here that shows the cost functions for this competitive firm. The MC is the marginal cost, ATC is the average total cost, AVC is the average variable cost. We're measuring the quantity of the product produced on the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis we're measuring the price. P is price of the good, and C stands for the word cost, because we're measuring the cost functions on the vertical axis too. So if the quantity was 6, the average total cost of making 6 would be just over $140. The average variable cost of making 6 would be about $60, and you can figure out the marginal cost too. And you can figure out all the total cost functions. So if it's a perfectly competitive market, it means the firm is a price taker. They have to sell this product for whatever the market determined price is. They have no market power to do anything about the price. So suppose that price is $90. So our firm has to sell the product at whatever the market price is. In this case, that's $90. If they try to charge a price higher than $90, they won't sell any, because it's a perfectly competitive market, which means there's lots of other firms selling exactly the same thing for $90. Nobody will pay a higher price to buy it from any particular firm because it's a standardized product. Well, there's the demand curve, and since it's horizontal and the firm's a price taker, their marginal revenue is the same thing as their demand curve, so that line also shows the marginal revenue curve. So now there's the demand and marginal revenue curve because the price is $90. Now the question is, what quantity is this firm going to choose to produce? And if they want to maximize profits, they have to produce the quantity where the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost. And here's my marginal cost function. So my marginal revenue and marginal cost functions intersect at that point. Quantity corresponding to that point is the profit maximizing or loss minimizing quantity. So now the question is, if that's the best they can do, how much money will they make? That is their profit, or how much will they lose? And that depends on what the average total cost is. So at Q equals 9, the average total cost to produce that quantity would be that amount of money, whatever it is. Looks to be about $125 approximately. So there's the average total cost of producing 9, about $125. Well, this firm is not in a good situation, since they're selling each unit of the product for $90, and it costs them to make each one $125. That means they're losing the difference on every unit they sell. They're losing $35, 125 minus 90, on each unit they sell. And that's that vertical distance there. That's 125, that's 90, so the difference there is 35. And they're going to lose that on 9 units. So altogether, they're going to lose 35 times $9. So here you have their loss represented on the graph. This rectangle is 35 by 9. So its area measures their loss of $315. Now that's the best this firm can do if the price is 90. If they produce a bigger quantity, they would lose more than $315, because the additional cost of making those units is more than the additional revenue they get when they sell the units. So their profits would, their losses would get bigger. they made fewer than 9 widgets, their losses would get bigger because they would not be producing units that would add more to revenue than to cost and thereby reduce their loss. So the best, if the price is 90, the best they can do is lose $315. So will the firm keep operating in the short run? And the answer to that question is yes. If they were to shut the business down in the short run, they would still have to pay their fixed costs. Maybe the rent on the land they're using or interest on the capital. They have to pay those costs whether they produce anything or not. So if they're deciding whether to stay open or shut down in the short run, it depends on what their fixed costs are. We can estimate their fixed costs from this graph by using the ATC and the AVC. At Q equals 9, we already estimated the ATC to be about $125. At Q equals 9, the average variable cost looks to be about $70, maybe a little bit more. That means the average fixed cost is the difference. $125 minus 70, which equals about $55. Should be from here to here. It's $55 of fixed cost, average fixed cost. If we know the average fixed cost, we can figure the total fixed cost by multiplying it times the quantity. We know the quantity is 9, so my estimate there was about $55 times 9 is going to give me the total fixed cost. So Q equals 9, the average variable cost is about 70, which makes the average fixed cost about 55, since the average variable plus the average fixed has to equal the average total. And that makes the total fixed cost about $495, which is the average fixed cost times the quantity. 55 times 9 is $495. And so now the choice for our firm is shut down and still pay those fixed costs and be out, lose $495, or stay in business, in which case they lose $315. So if that's a choice of either losing $315 or losing $495, they're going to choose to lose $315. So they will stay in business in the short run. Another way to determine that they would stay open in the short run is to compare the price, 90, with the average variable cost. And if the price is bigger than the average variable cost, then it must be the case that their fixed cost would be bigger than the loss, so then they would stay in business in the short run. So you can look at the loss and compare it to the fixed cost to determine whether the firm stays in business in the short run, or you can compare the price with the average variable cost to determine the same thing. You can also look at total revenue and total variable cost. As long as the marginal revenue curve crosses the marginal cost curve in between the ATC and the AVC, somewhere in this range, the firm will stay in business even though they're making a loss. If the price had been higher than 90, up here somewhere above the ATC, they make a profit. If the MR crosses the MC down here, that's where the price is less than the AVC, so they're better off shutting down. If the price, for example, is $50, it would be below the AVC, so they'd be better off shutting down. The firm makes its smallest loss per unit if it makes 12. If it makes 12, then and sells them for 90 because the price is still 90. The average total cost at Q equals 12 is its smallest. It's only $120 at Q equals 12. And so that's where the loss per unit would be only $30 to be smaller than the $35 they're losing per unit at Q equals 9. So the lowest point on the ATC is where the average loss is the smallest. Break-even point for this firm. You can always find the break-even point by looking at the MC and the ATC, where those two cross is the break-even point, the zero profit point. The zero profit point for this firm would be a price of $120. If the price is 120, which is where the MC and the ATC curves cross, then the firm will maximize profits by producing where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which would be at Q equals 12. Here's my MC, the red line is my MR, they cross at Q equals 12. At that quantity, the average total cost is also 120. If I go up to the ATC and over, it's 120. So since they're selling each unit for 120 and it costs 120 to produce, their economic profit is 0. So if the price is $65, which is where the average variable and the marginal cost curves cross, if $65 is the price, they would choose to produce where MR equals MC, which would be 6.5. MC, MR would cross right there at 6.5. The average variable cost of making 6.5 is about $65 too. And so the price would be just as big as the AVC. So for this firm, if the price is less than $65, they would shut down in the short run. If the price is more than 65 but less than 120, they would stay in business in the short run but lose money. If the price was equal to 120, their profit would be 0. If the price is more than 120, they make an economic profit. Help you to understand the idea of perfect competition.